Welcome to another episode of Profit with Estate Planning Podcast. Here we produce binge-worthy content for the estate planning law firm owners by interviewing marketing experts, high-producing law firm owners, and professionals who work around death, legacy, and family dynamics. I am your host, Heath Rost, and founder of The Predictable Estate Planner. Today, I'm with Michael Bailey, Esquire of Mobile Estate Planning, who just 4 years ago was doing 400K annually and has steadily grown to over 1 million in gross revenue this past year. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Heath.
Now, we like these interviews to be inspiring to all of our listeners. So today, we really just want to hear your story, Michael. So why don't we start at the very beginning, and then we can kind of fast forward to what happened in 2021 that changed everything, and how you've scaled from there to now.
Okay.
So, first question I'll ask, why did you choose estate planning as a focus, and why mobile estate planning?
So it's more that it chose me than I chose it, but it worked out really well for me. So when I went to law school, I wanted to be a criminal prosecutor. I wanted to put the bad guys away. That's what I wanted to do. And then as I was going through law school, I kind of began to realize and understand I don't like trial work. It's just not my thing. So went looking for somewhere else that I could still be an attorney and still use the skills and not have spent $100,000 on law school for nothing, and kind of tried to find my way to where I would enjoy something. I worked for a while for a tax resolution firm trying to dig people out of trouble with the IRS. I worked, preparing taxes. And then I had a friend who came to me and said, "Hey, I've got a whole bunch of people who I work with. They were World War II and Korean War vets, and there's money available from the VA to help pay for their lives, but I need somebody who can put assets into an asset protection trust so they can qualify because this program had pretty strict asset limits." And so I was like, well, I think that sounds like something I could do. And I got connected with a group that helps do that. And then I started sitting down with clients and put it together asset protection trusts, and just seeing how wonderful and exciting it was for them that they could put their assets into an asset protection trust and there was money to help pay from the VA to help pay for life. And I was like, ooh, I feel like I'm really helping people. Some of the tax resolution clients I had, they'd get in tax trouble, I'd dig them out of it. And then 6 months later, they'd come back and they're back in tax trouble. And I'm like, so what was the point of doing what I did? So as I was helping these people get their assets into an asset protection trust, they were very grateful, they were very happy, and I felt good about helping people with what I did. And most of these people lived in assisted living or skilled nursing or places where it was very hard for them to get around. So I just kind of started doing mobile estate planning where I would go to them. I'd go to the assisted living facility, I'd go to their apartment to meet with them. And so I started kind of in that super specialized thing. And then I remembered that when I was in law school, I took a trust and estates class, and I wrote a will for a gentleman you may know by the name of Harry Potter, because we had to pick a fictional character to write a will for. I'm like, okay, so I wrote him kind of a basic will, and then I'm doing this super specialized type of trust, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying the people I'm working with. So maybe going from basic here to specialized here, all this other stuff in the middle, I could learn and fill in and help people do estate planning. And then I felt like I was helping people and being a productive attorney instead of just, preying on the terrible, horrible things that happen. And that really squared with what I enjoy doing and how I enjoy helping people. And so that's kind of how I ended up doing it and making an entire business and a living off of it.
It sounds like the VA work was really kind of part of what got you into estate planning in the first place.
It was kind of my jumping off point to get in. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we like to talk about, jumping off points, like how people decided to start it, why they decided to start it. So
Hmm.
that's really unique. And then it sounds like you were going to these nursing homes to begin with, and you always had to drive there. So, did you like driving? That's why you decided to kind of, name your company Mobile Estate Planning.
just made sense with since I was already making house calls and I don't have any problem driving. I try to schedule my appointments so that I'm not driving during rush hour. But
Mm,
when I picked my last car to purchase, I specifically picked one that I was going to enjoy driving because I knew I'd be spending a lot of time in it. So
that's a good call.
it wasn't just a, oh, I need to get from here to here. It's like I'm going to be in this car a lot. I want one that's comfortable and that I'll enjoy driving. And so that's part of how I ended up with the car that I have now.
Right? So if you're going to be a mobile estate planner like Michael, make sure that you have a car that you're comfortable being in many hours of the day, every day. So
Hmm.
maybe
Yep.
something to invest in. Great. Okay, so let's talk about so you went from when you started to about 2021. How
Hmm.
was that growth cycle from when you first started your business to it was probably about ten years in.
Right. So when I first started, like all of my clients came from VA stuff. My friend who was a financial planner, he was feeding me clients and probably 4 or 5 a month, which was enough that I could live off of. Um, but I also kind of understood that that wasn't going to be a forever type of thing. He hasn't sent me a client probably in 7 years now. So there was a rule change with the VA program where it used to be there was no look back period. Now there's a 3-year look back period, so people are a little bit less excited and ready, rearing to go all at that exact moment. But I kind of realized that from the very beginning that it was kind of a temporary thing. I'm like, if we're working with World War II and Korean War vets, they're going to get older, they're going to die off, there's going to be less of them. And then even this program that was for it was for wartime veterans. Once you get out of World War II and Korea, I'm like, later on, there's Vietnam and there's, the Gulf War and War on Terror and all those type of things. But it's certainly a lot less people than there were going to be in World War II.
Mm,
So I knew full well that it was never going to last forever. So as I was working with the clients that the financial planner was sending me, I started kind of being like, okay, well, how can I make this work? So I've got to figure out how can I write a will for somebody or how can I write a revocable trust for somebody? And, can I still do the asset protection trust for VA and for Medicaid? And then deciding, do I want to go all the way into VA and Medicaid and that be my specialty? And then I can help people with the applications and, kind of from start to finish. And I kind of realized that wasn't really where I wanted to be. I didn't want to spend my entire or a lot of my work existence beating my head against the brick wall that is the VA or Medicaid and the government trying to help convince them that they should follow their own rules and help people out. That wasn't really what I was excited about to do. I'm like, I want to help people with their estate planning. So as I would go, I'm like, okay, well, I can do wills and I can do trusts and powers of attorney and all of the things in between. So I was learning how to do those and how to get those to people. And at the same time, I was, trying to figure out how can I get my name out there? You can do word of mouth. So, the VA, they were VA clients are really happy. And then usually their kids, I could get to do estate plans. But then we get to the grandkids, were the grandkids old enough to even need an estate plan, or were they still teenagers? And, that was kind of something I ran into. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world can I find more people to bring in? Because relying on one source of a friend of mine who's a financial planner who was out there bringing people in, it was great. It was wonderful. But only having one source of referrals wasn't the best idea. So I joined some networking groups and I joined some, like Chamber of Commerce type of things and never quite bought into the, oh, well, you should go to the Bar Association events. I'm like, so I should go to the trust and estate section with a bunch of other trust and estates attorneys who will be just excited to give me a whole bunch of business. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense either. You try advertising in senior magazines or senior newspapers and things like that. Just all the things that are out there. And then you listen to, the Bar Association presentations of this is how you should market yourself. You're like, okay, I'll try it out. Well, if everybody's doing the exact same thing, that's not going to work so well. And so then you and I met at a networking event, and we started talking about how I wasn't, I mean, I can click on websites like nobody's business, but I don't know enough about the technical aspects of things to be doing things. So along the way, you and I kind of got connected, Heath. And you're like, oh, well, maybe we should just try blogging. And I'm like, yeah, everybody does blogging, thinking it's just another thing that everybody does, except that you were able to teach me that not everybody does that. And you were able to teach me how do we get from, that blogging isn't just, oh, I'm going to write something that's a cool, interesting story that somebody will want to read, but to use a blog as okay, here's a cool, interesting story somebody wants to read. Here's some interesting information. Huh, yeah, we probably want to do something like that. We should call Michael and work with him. So we started developing that and learning that along the way. And so, it was kind of a learning and not necessarily growing into a huge, law firm. It was kind of a slow, steady, where are we at and how are we figuring out how to do this type of growth? I needed to figure out how to do the legal work. I needed to work with you to figure out how to actually market myself. And so that first time was developing all of those things so we could get to where we were ready to take off when the time came.
Right. And, so this was probably 2010 to 2020 when you were first starting up. I think we just started working in around 2014, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we started blogging together, but things didn't take off, like immediately, right? We were still kind of doing all these different, things to market you. I know
Hmm.
that you also started your radio show around then.
Right. And I do a half an hour radio show where I talk about estate planning for a half an hour. I jokingly refer to it and very facetiously refer to it as the most scintillating half hour of radio in the Denver metro area. And anybody who knows anything about estate planning knows that's a flat out lie. But I don't just talk about estate planning. I tell fun stories, tell the stories about how a couple weeks ago I came back from being in Boston for a volleyball tournament for my 17-year-old daughter. So I talked about, being in Boston and the juxtaposition of the old buildings from the 1700s or the 1800s and the new modern ones, and how you can't, not everything stays the same for forever, but some things get preserved, some things don't. And then I related that to estate planning. So it was a thing to do. And basically it's a half an hour long commercial for myself, but I'm not like, hey, do your estate planning, call me. Hey, do your estate planning, call me. I tell kind of fun and interesting stories so that people understand that it's not quite as boring as it can be to work with me.
Right. So let's fast forward now.
Sure.
We went through this whole pandemic thing, right, in
Hmm.
2020, and we're just coming out of it. It's 2021. And this is around the time things just started to really ramp up for you. I know that,
Hmm.
up to that point, I think the most you'd ever been booked out was like a week, maybe a week and a half, maybe two
Uh-huh.
weeks. Catch us up. What happened in 2021 to today?
So partially coming out of the pandemic, people seem to understand, hey, I may not live forever. There may be some things going on that are outside of my control that might take me down. So people began to understand that. And then I also think we really kind of had figured out how the best way to reach people was. It wasn't just write a blog. It's not just put an ad on Facebook. It's not just put an ad on Instagram. It's not just, so all of these pieces that we've been doing, they kind of all came together all at once in a comprehensive, how do we now start and have this engine running so that it will find people for us?
Before we get back to the episode, I want to mention something quickly. If you own an estate planning law firm and want more qualified leads coming in every month without relying on consistent referrals or paid ads, that's exactly what I help attorneys do. Through blogging, SEO, and conversion focused websites, I work with estate planning law firms who want consistent leads, better cases, and a practice that actually grows year after year. If that sounds like something you want, go to predictableestateplanner.com and schedule a strategy call with me. All right, let's get back to the episode.
How do we tap into the people who are like, oh, now grandpa and grandma had COVID. How do I take care of that? Or, now they're inheriting money from grandpa and grandma who passed away. What do we do with it? And so it was like it was the right time where it became more um, in the collective consciousness of people. but also we had all the systems in place so that it wasn't me having to go out and go to a networking event twice a day and beat the bushes to beat everybody in. We now had kind of a comprehensive working plan for the what you've now named the predictable estate planning. It had now kind of come to all of the things that we tried. We figured out, oh, how do we make now it all works, and now it all works together, and now it all works, together with what I've created, what you've created. It all works together. So suddenly we had a bunch of people calling. It wasn't one or two people a week. It was 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15, and then 15 to 20. And now, taking 3, 4, 5 calls a day from potential clients who are seeing what we're doing and looking for what I can offer. And so the kind of the engine got running, whereas before we had different parts, but now we have the whole race car set up together so that we can just, get in it and go, as opposed to trying to invent it as we figure it out. Somewhere
Right,
along,
right.
it was millions of years ago, the wheel got invented. Okay, cool. Well, the wheel is an important part of the car, but somewhere along the way, we needed axles and we needed seats and we needed an internal combustion engine that didn't come around for millions of years. And then we needed to figure out how can we combine these things and have a controlled explosion in an internal combustion engine so that, because that's what it is. We're exploding gas. Cool. Let's sit right next to it. Awesome. That might not be the most safe thing to do. So you figure out so the technology had to be there to work itself out so that it would all work together. And so now
So
we have the working everything with the
so
predictable
I'm
estate
hearing that
planner.
you it was a combination of things around 2021.
Hmm.
One, uh, collective awareness of people
Hmm.
being more aware that they're going to die someday,
Right.
right? So I really think that this it really does play in. Like I think that we are more aware now, and it
Hmm.
is a great time to get in as an estate planning attorney. Like
Right.
even if you're just starting today, like people are now more aware in this generation because of what we went through.
Right. And we remember COVID for good, bad, ugly, and otherwise, and it's all of those together.
Mhm.
But it's entered the collective consciousness of everything that that everybody knows they're going to die. Everybody. Nobody thinks it's going to be anytime soon, and there's always lots of time for it to figure out. Except the code is like, yeah, but it might not be as long as you think. So maybe you get something done now.
Right. So
But
the other thing that you mentioned is having a system like a lead system where everything is in one place and it's doing some automated follow up for you so that
mhm,
all the leads that are coming in, you can follow up with them and you don't have to be digging and handwriting and showing up to networking events and getting business cards, right? So that was
right.
obviously a big help.
Hmm.
But it wasn't all your marketing, right? Like there has to be somebody that is running the engine to your business, right? So, you scaled this business. You had your marketing figured out, right? And you
Hmm.
had it figured out at the right time, right? You'd been blogging
Hmm.
for many years, and then finally you had the right system, the right public awareness, and you were doing advertising. So,
Hmm.
your website and your marketing started converting like crazy for you, but it still takes
Hmm.
the business owner and the attorney to scale a firm from 33K a month to 70 to 80K a month in
Right.
a matter of just a few years. So tell us what was the thing that kind of just unlocked an extra 10K, 20K a month, 30K a month. What was the thing that did it for you during that time span?
I think I had kind of developed all the right knowledge to be able to help people in different things. I found myself where like when I first would meet with people, when I first started doing this on my own, 20, 15, 17 years ago, when I sat down with somebody, it would take me like an hour to go through all of the things. Well, now I have an intake worksheet that I email to them. So then we sit down, we talk, I've got all that information so I don't have to spend 20 minutes writing everything down. It's already all written down. And then I found I could do an appointment in a half an hour to 45 minutes that used to take me an hour.
Mm,
So yeah, I could see more people. I somewhere along the way, I hired a paralegal to draft things for me so that I wasn't, so I was meeting with somebody and then I could write it up in 10 to 15 minutes, send it off to the paralegal to draft instead of I'm taking an hour to meet with them, an hour to draft everything, an hour to send it out. So the things that I found that I didn't need to do myself, I could push off to somebody else.
Okay, so
And
Michael,
then,
there was a lot that you just shared there, and I want to make
mhm,
sure that our listeners are picking up everything that you're putting down here. So,
sure.
intake is a really big subject for
Hmm.
these attorneys, and it sounds like you are sending an email with an intake, right? A lot of these, attorneys are getting, bombarded with intake systems and different technologies, but it sounds like
Hmm.
you're doing it pretty old school, right? You're emailing people a PDF and they're handwriting it and coming to the meeting.
Or they can fill in the PDF. It's a fillable PDF.
There you go. Look at that. Look at using technology.
Yeah, well, there's one page that different versions of Adobe don't like it, and I'm like, if I knew computers, I'd try to fix that. But I mean, I probably could have some sort of intake system like on my website where people input information and then it would spit it out, but that wouldn't necessarily be any more or less effective than the PDF that I sent to them. And especially with the demographic that I'm working with a lot of older people who are, at or near or after retirement, so they're 60s, 70s, they don't really want to be on the computer. Oh, let me type everything in. That's not, I mean, that maybe younger generations, that may be what they want to do. Um, but for the demographic that I'm working with, they kind of like, oh, hey, I can fill this out. And then I can bring it in, and then we can sit down. And they always seem to apologize, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't fill everything out. We did the best we could. We have a couple of questions." And I look at them, I say, "That's fine. It's a starting point. It's not supposed to be perfect. If it was so perfect that you understood absolutely everything and handed me an intake worksheet, I'm like, well, gee, I got everything I need. Thanks for coming by. I'd be writing myself out of a job, which really isn't what I'm looking to do because all of what we're doing is to create that relationship between me and my clients. People, something that I did learn at probably at a BNI meeting, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. So my intake process, my intake worksheet, and everything that I do is to get them to know, like, and hopefully trust me a little bit. That I can then, when we meet in person, they can decide they really know, like, and trust me and want to work with me.
Brilliant, brilliant, Michael. I mean, what you're saying about how this is, uh, uh, part of the relationship that you're building with people, right? They want to meet with you in person because I feel like, just the clients that we work with, one of the complaints a lot is, man, I send them the intake or I send them my system for intake, and then there is no follow-up meeting, right?
Mhm.
And, we look at that and we say, okay, what kind of relationship are we building with people prior to them filling that out and wanting to
Right,
meet with you, right?
right. Well, an initial phone call or people who can schedule something on my website, I will schedule the meeting that's the let's figure stuff out meeting. I'm like, okay, we got this meeting scheduled because I'm booked 10 to 11 weeks out. It's going to be 2.5, 3 months before I can meet with them. So I say, okay, hey, we've got it set down, we've got it set up. I'm going to email you the intake worksheet, fill it out to the best of your ability, bring it to the meeting. So I already have that next step set up. And then I say, okay, we're here talking. We've got this next step. That's what we need to do. Here's your things that you need to do between here and there to be ready, because nobody wants to come to a meeting and feel like, oh, I don't have anything prepared. What do I do? They want to be ready. And so I'm helping them help themselves be ready for that next meeting so that we're not bogged down in, oh, I sent you a leak for intake. How come you haven't done anything with it? Well, it was a link in my email and it got buried under 100 different other emails, so I didn't do anything about it. Well, now if I've already have something set up, they're like, oh, yeah, so out on May 3rd, we're meeting with Michael. Need to make sure I get that intake worksheet done. I know it's only, you know, um, March 3rd, but somewhere in there, I need to actually start working on this and do it. So they've kind of committed themselves to coming to see me. So they want to do it. They want to work on it because they don't want to come in and look like somebody's like, well, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm helping clients be more prepared and ready to come work with me. And if they're more prepared and ready to come work with me, then there's less that I have to do when they show up.
Perfect.
because
So that was a good.
I say, they've prepared themselves and I've helped them prepare themselves in the direction I want them to go so that we can work together quicker and easier.
Right, right. So that was a really big part of it, right? This whole intake process that you refined, right? That's a
Hmm.
really big part of how we're able to go from 33K to, 60, 70K months. The
Right.
other big part was that you're freeing up a lot of time when you hired a paralegal,
Hmm.
right? So, attorneys that are out there that are at, 30, 20, 30K a month, how many people do you have on your team? Michael did this around, probably $33,000. And this is what really helped him to scale because then he could then teach that paralegal the right way to do it. And he was
Hmm.
freeing up 2 to 3 hours every time he needed to write an estate plan because, he had that marketing set up so that he could now be taking calls and focusing more on that intake.
Right. And focusing more on building that relationship with clients as quickly as possible so that they want to hire me so that I can take care of them and help them, which really is the ultimate goal is to help people.
Hey, real quick before we finish today's episode, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you already know that most estate planning attorneys don't have a marketing problem, they have a consistency problem. They get referrals for a while, then things slow down, then they try ads, then they stop, and the cycle repeats. What I do is I help estate planning law firm owners build predictable lead generation using blogging, search traffic, and conversion systems that keep working month after month. If you want help building that kind of marketing for your firm, go to predictableestateplanner.com and schedule a call with me. Now, let's finish the episode. You talk about just building this relationship with them. And I really believe in that, Michael, because looking at your calendar right now, you're booked about 4 months out,
Not quite four. I have a couple appointments at the end of May. So it's like 2.5 months.
and it is March 17th.
It's March 17th. I have a couple openings on May 28th.
There you go.
So
So,
I appreciate your thinking it's 4 months out, but it's not quite. You can't build me up that much, Heath.
well, the point is, Michael, you have built this relationship with people through your marketing, right?
Hmm.
Ever since we I think we probably started blogging in like 2015.
Hmm.
And you've been doing the radio, you've been doing the blogging, and you've been building this relationship with people that they're able to get to know you.
Right.
And why would you say that people are willing to wait that long just to work with you?
I think because they know that I care about them, they know that I care about what they need, and they know that I will take care of them. I mean, I just, as you were talking, I was thinking about the old Denver commercials of Shane Company, and the tagline was, "You've got a friend in the diamond business." And I don't know that Shane Company really is my friend, or that, but everybody wants to feel like they have this in and they have this, this special friend who can do that. Well, I am that for my clients. They've got a friend in the law estate planning business, and I'm it. Are we the best friends who are going to go out on a Saturday night and, celebrate the Broncos winning a playoff game? Probably not. But when it comes to estate planning, I'm their inside man. I'm the one that can help them know and navigate the legal systems, and I'm there to help them and bring them along. And I think that people get a sense of that, is that I'm more interested in helping them. They're not just a check the box and a paycheck to me. Long ago, I learned that if you do the right thing, then the money follows. So if I do the right things for clients and then I happen to get paid for my work, okay. But I'm not, oh, hey, I need to do this and get this done and check all the boxes and tick off and then, hey, here you go, you're on your way. But rather, I'm here to help my clients succeed. And I think that that comes across in what I do. And so I think that's why people are willing to want to work with me, even if it takes some time to wait.
Right. um Thank you, Michael. Thank you for
Well,
sharing your story, how you've been growing. If you had to kind of just put it, let's say you're talking directly to somebody who's, you know, at 30K a month. wants to get to
Mhm.
50 or 60, what would you say was the biggest things that they should be focusing on right now as the owners of their law firm?
Just focus on what it is you want to do. Who do you want to help? And why do you want to help them? And figure out what it is you need to do to help more people that brings in more revenue. For me, I hired a paralegal and pushed some of that off. I also hired a notary to handle some of the signings, just so that there was less of the busy work that I had to do. I still like answering my own phone. I like being able to talk to clients directly and help them out. Other people, if you don't love talking on the phone, you're like, yeah, I'd rather have an office manager or somebody to say, great, hire that type of person. But figure out what it is that you can do to offload things that you don't do. Am I a great marketer? No, I am not. Is Heath a great marketer? Yes, yes, he is. So I have Heath handle the marketing with the predictable estate planning. Am I the for signing and getting things notarized? Am I the greatest notary in the world? Not really. I'm kind of the same as other notaries, but I've got my notary who can go and get some wills signed that I then don't have to take the travel time or the time to get them signed. So I've figured out what it is that I do and I want to do and how I want to do things and how I can keep myself in that relationship with my clients and take care of them and make sure that they can feel that they are important to me because they are, while still not spending so much of my time that I'm not able to move from a plateau that I'd reached to the next level. So you kind of reach that plateau and you're like, hey, I'm doing well, Is $30,000 a month a bad place to be? Absolutely not. Is it the place where you want to stay? It's possible, but if we want to grow and go from there. And then let's say you have growth and you find a referral source and it's even bigger, then hey, something that I have not done is hire an associate attorney. It's just hasn't been something that's come up because I like being able to be responsible for my own work and knowing that my work is I can stand behind it and I don't need to have anybody else there. But if you find what's the thing that you love? What's the thing that you need to do to be excited about it? Do I really need to scan things and put them in filing cabinets? Is that what I went to law school to do, to scan things and put things in filing cabinets? Probably not. You know, if there are days where you're like the only thing that I can muster the energy to do today is scan and put things in filing cabinets, cool. But scanning things and putting in things in filing cabinets isn't going to be bringing in new clients. And if the new clients are the lifeblood of any practice, how do you get those, figure out how you can make those clients want to come work with you and what's so important to you.
Amazing. Well, Michael, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. And I'm sure our listeners really appreciate it. So if our listeners want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
So I have, my phone number is 720-394-6887. And again, that's 720-394-6887. Or you can email me at michaelbaileylaw@yahoo.com. That's michaelbaileylaw@yahoo.com.
Perfect. And of course, we'll put those in the show notes for everybody. I understand also, Michael, that you recently have stepped into the coaching area. Is that something that is it too soon to make that announcement or?
I'm starting to figure out how I can do that to not only help clients directly, but also help other attorneys kind of get from where they are to where they want to be. I mean, that's a it's a new endeavor where I'm trying to figure out how can I help people there. And I'm sure that the same way that the first few estate planning clients that I had, I'm like, there might be some starts and stops and trying to figure that out. But how coaching other attorneys is different from teaching clients. So it'll be a little bit before I'm really up and running with that, but I'm working on it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again for being with us today. Again, I am Heath Rost with Michael Bailey Esquire. We will see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
If you've never talked to somebody who's an expert in web design, you're going to want to catch this next podcast with Jack Simon from Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to have a discussion about your Google business profile and how to get that thing set up and optimized in a way that's really going to work for you. So check out that next interview.